of Dallas, about 30 miles. Actually, it's now 40 degrees here, so a balmy 40.
Oh man.
On its way to Fort. Let me see here. Today, on its way to like 46. Nothing fantastic.
Wow.
You know what they You know what they say about Texas? If you don't like the weather, just wait a minute. It's going to be 53 tomorrow, and then all next week it's going to be in the 70s. So figure that out.
Okay, nice. All right, good morning. Good morning. How's it going, Patrick? Partik, how's everybody doing? Hey, Mario, what's up? You guys, okay,
Morning. Good morning.
housekeeping rules, turn on your video so we can see your moneymaker. And today we've got Mr. Wally Bressler, the legend, the myth, the man.
And his legend in his own mind.
Yep, top agent, broker team, coach, amazing coach. So, hey, Wally, if you could share a little bit about yourself, and let's jump right into
Sure.
Our content today.
Yeah, thank you, Tom, for having me here today. I appreciate it. It's good to see you folks. Chris Buck, yo, what's up, brother? Good to have you here. My name is Wally Bressler, and I've been in the real estate industry since '98. So what's that, 25 years? And I've had the good fortune of coaching agents, probably starting in 2001, and coach full-time. 2006, I helped build the biggest Coldwell Banker office in the state of New Hampshire. We were a little over 400 transactions a year for about 4 or 5 years in a row, and then I started coaching full-time in 2006. I published my first book last year, and I was on a TV show on in Times called Times Square Today on NBC, ABC, CBS, and Fox. And I just had the good fortune of working with top agents like Tom across the United States and Canada for past 20 years or so. So I'm super excited about it. I've worked with truckloads of people in EXP. I've known Brent Gove, Cliff Freeman, Michael Reese, Jay Kinder. I've known those guys for probably since 2001. So very familiar with the XP model and the kind of success you can have there. And I've worked closely with Tom and his team and some other folks. So I'm super excited to be here with you guys today. Not a small commercial. Thank you for letting me talk about myself. Let's be done with that, shall we? Cool. All right. You go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So, as I was thinking yesterday, I was thinking about, what would be the thing that would be most helpful for everyone right now in today's market? And because, we ran the numbers, and a year ago, it would take 10 contacts to book one appointment. Right now, with the changing market, things have changed. It takes on average 20 contacts to book one appointment. So it's more conversations. And so I asked myself, what is keeping agents from having those more conversations? And it all boils down to call reluctance. Mm-hmm. So let's unpack that, Wally. Go ahead.
Sure. I wanted to share some data. I have a very good friend who owns a company called Objective Management Group, and they are the top sales skills assessment company in the world. And their sales skills assessment, it looks at about 30 different qualities of salespeople, and they gather all kinds of information. So the owner of the company is a friend of mine. He shared this with me yesterday. They analyzed 23,900 conversations, and they identified the 6 things that are that make people top salespeople. And so number one is the overriding thing here is that these are phone conversations. Okay. This is basically about being on the phone. So number one, levels of engagement, top performers make 54% more conversation switches on calls, right? And the conversation switch means that who's talking, right? So the thing is, people who are top performers, they try and make sure that the prospect is talking more than they are. If you're not top, probably the top performers make 81.5 switches. This means they give the other person a lot of time to talk. People who aren't top performers, don't. I'm sorry, it says presentations, this calls. I got myself backwards here. So on calls, more switches, face-to-face, more switches. So basically, top performers are giving people more time to talk. Does that make sense? So you're not just getting on the phone and vomiting all over people. You're talking with them and giving people the chance to talk and share their what they're doing. That's where consultative selling comes from, right? I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to let you talk. It's not about me trying to sell you on me. It's about me finding out what problems you have and then showing you how I can solve them. So here's the other thing, and this is really important. Top performers discovery calls are 76% longer. Okay. He or she who keeps the prospect on the phone the longest wins. Okay, so you need to be able to talk to people. Now, these days, just so you know, 48% of salespeople will jump off the phone at the first sign of resistance. The bad news is that in addition to those 10 plus calls you have to make to get in touch with somebody, that it takes 4 no's to get to a yes in most cases, so about 66% of the time. So when somebody says, hey, we're going to wait for the market to change, you can't go, okay, I'll call you later. You've got to be like, hey, when you say you're waiting for the market to change, what do you mean? Well, we want prices to come down. Okay, great. What were you thinking? And then ask enough questions to find out the problem you're solving, so then you can go ahead and resolve that. So discovery is super important, right? And so it's basically almost twice on both cases here with respect to over the phone and face to face. Okay. Now here's the thing. It doesn't, like we talked about switches, they're getting the prospects to talk more. See, the challenge is so many people are afraid to get on the phone that they don't want to ask questions and they don't want to deal with rejection. We're going to talk about that in a second. Okay. But they just don't want to deal with the rejection associated with it. Also, top performers speak more slowly, and they are both asking and receiving far more questions. This is a big one. And then they discuss product features far less. This is a big one here, right? Okay. And here's why. Like, if I can't share with you what I do until I know what you want. And I'm not going to share everything with you. It's interesting. I used to do this thing, and I still do it sometimes. It's called Call the Competition. I would do trainings with agents, and they would give me names of agents in their marketplace that they thought were really good agents. And I would call them, and 9.5 times out of 10, what they thought was going to be an amazing call was a horrible call. Because I would say, hey, I would call and say, hey, can you give me information about this property? Instead of asking me what I wanted, they would just start telling me everything about the property. Okay. And so the fact of the matter is that us talking about everything about a property or everything that we do online does not work, right? So now look, there's 2 types of call reluctance, and we'll just go from there. The first type of call reluctance is when I don't know what to say, when to say it, how to say it. I don't understand the value that I bring to the table. I can't articulate the value. Okay. So that is more of a confidence and a syntax issue. Does that make sense? Right. I'm not comfortable with what to say, so I'm not going to hop on the phone, but I am willing to practice scripts and dialogues. I am willing to, work with people and do what I need to do until I can get better on the phone. The other type of call reluctance is more of an emotionally based call reluctance. And I'll send you, I'll make sure that Tom gets the article for you to go ahead and do that. In fact, here, let me just post a link right here for you, if you guys don't mind. I'll just put the link right into this chat here so you can have it. And then I'll send it to Tom. So for anybody who's watching this on tape delay, if you will, we'll be able to grab it as well, but you can see the link in there as well. There you go. Okay. So the other call reluctance is emotionally driven. Okay. And so let's talk about that for a second. Here's the thing. Most of who we are, our belief systems, what we believe to be true about ourselves, our identities are literally formed by the time we're 7. Okay. And it usually gets finished forming by the time we're 12 or 13. Now, if we experience things when we're younger, so one of them would be trauma. So sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, excuse me, somebody close to you dying unexpectedly. I've had people who have lost brothers and sisters, at the park for 4 or 5 hours. Somebody was kidnapped. Something that was really shocking can do it. If you were bullied by family members or friends or teachers or adults. Also, we create hidden identities of our own. We look at something, we make an observation. I grew up poor, and I didn't know I was poor, but I saw the other kids at school had Levi's and Timberland boots, and they even had nicer lunches than I did. And so I created a poverty consciousness around being different than them. Sometimes people of color, people who are African American or they're from a different culture, because they have an accent, that happens sometimes where they feel so different that they're afraid to stand out. And then lastly, our parents, influences of adults, especially our parents. So if your parents, they programmed you with negativity, or, your parents were an alcoholic, one of your parents was an alcoholic and they couldn't pour into you or show you approval and acceptance, or you couldn't get approval and acceptance at school, or your parents got divorced and, your stepmom or stepdad was mean to you, or you got less attention from one parent after divorce. Okay. So any of these experiences, here's a big one, by the way, either your parents fought all the time or your parents never fought in front of you. Okay. People have call reluctance because their parents never fought and they never learned how to deal with confrontation or conflict. And so they don't want to get on the phone. Now, look, all this all comes down to is that When these things happen, seeds of doubt get planted inside of us, seeds of fear get planted inside of us, and it triggers our fight or flight response. And most people who have any sort of call reluctance, or who have trouble getting on front of a camera, or have trouble public speaking, it's because something happened when you were younger and it triggered that fight or flight response, mostly flight, and you spent your entire life watering it and tending to it. And every time something came up that scared you, anytime that something came up where you doubted yourself, or you didn't feel good enough, or you didn't feel approved of, you reinforced that in your brain, and it grew from a little seed to a seedling, to a flower, to a plant, to a bush, to a tree. And now it's a big sequoia tree. It's ginormous and you can't get around it. But you don't see it as being that. What you see it as, I don't want a cold call. I don't want to get on the phone. I hate getting in front of the camera. I don't like when people call me. They're going to be too busy. Oh, look at the dishes in the sink. Those really need to be washed right now instead of prospecting. You know, I don't have my scripts down. I don't have my presentation down. Does that make sense to everybody? So what's keeping you from getting on the phone and prospecting? And by the way, it's also, so what's keeping you from doing this is your avoidance strategy that's associated with keeping that pain from coming up. So there's a Canadian personal development expert. His name is T. Harv Eker. He wrote the book, The Millionaire Mind. If you've ever read it, it's a great book. But he talks about TFAR. So it's thoughts, feelings, actions, and then results. Every time we get triggered, there's a thought that comes up, okay? Now, in most cases, there's a thought, then there's a feeling, there's an emotion that comes up, and then we either take action or don't take action, and we get a result. But if you have something that really sucked, and it doesn't have to be that big, it could have been that, I'm trying to think, for instance, I had a client who, new kid moved into the neighborhood, went and visited with the new kid 3 or 4 days in a row. On the 5th day, he went there and pounded on the door, and the kid's older brother came out and said, you know, you don't have to keep coming over here. There's no need to come over every day. And he internalized that and made it feel like he was bothering him. Does that make sense? And so for his entire life, from the time he was 10 until he was an adult, he avoided putting himself in a position where he bothered people, because that struck him at such a high level. It really just hit a nerve for him. And he decided that he didn't want to bother people ever again, because he was so hurt by what happened. It could be something that insignificant or seemingly insignificant. Does that make sense? So it doesn't have to be huge. So anyway, here's what most of us do. Now, look, I had a really tough childhood. I was, I had an eating disorder starting at age 6. My parents, nice people, just not good parents. But, I grew up Italian. Anybody Italian here grew up in an Italian family? Tom, I know you did, right? So the 3 messes of communication when you're an Italian family is food, getting yelled at, and getting hit, right? That's pretty much how people communicate with you. You get hit, you get yelled at, or you get food. It's true, right? So anyway, food was a big thing in my family. I mean, we did everything around food. We were happy around food. We were sad around food. So anyway, my parents, used to put me to bed without dinner when I was 3, 4, and 5 as a punishment. Binge eating disorder since I was 6. I was sexually abused when I was 10. I was looking at pornography when I was 11. I was having sex when I was 12. I was completely bullied through the entire, all the way up to 14 years old. So by the time I was 14, I hated myself. I loathed myself. Okay. My dad died when I was 23. My mom died when I was 39. From the time my dad died until I was 50, so another 27 years, I thought I was going to die every day. Okay, made a lot of bad choices, made a lot of bad decisions. I spent the first 50 years of my life in self-sabotage and hurting myself. Okay. But I was also addicted to pornography, sex, food, and money. So what would happen is I would go, oh, and I had call reluctance for 10 years. So I would have to do something that scared me. So I'd go, oh, that triggered me. But I'm not going to feel this feeling. I'm going to eat. I'm going to watch pornography. I'm going to cheat on my wife. I'm going to go and spend a lot of money. I'm going to gamble. You know what I'm saying? And so what happens for all of us is that thing that we fear triggers us when we go trigger procrastination, trigger pornography, trigger dishes, trigger perfectionism, trigger imposter syndrome. You see what I'm saying? So that trigger happens and we don't even experience the emotion. We just go right by it. And then we call it something else, but call reluctance. Okay. Does that make sense? Now I know for a fact, as I'm talking, some of you have made a quick visit to your childhood in the back of your mind without your brain's permission. And without your permission, your brain's already looking. And some of you have already gone back and you're like, oh, I remember this and I remember that, right? Your brain remembers everything you've ever tasted, touched, smelled, seen, or heard. Thank you, Mario. And so as I'm talking to your brain, because its job is to understand things and create peace and clarity in your life, as I'm talking to your brain is going and looking at things and it's going, maybe this is why I can't do that, right? So there's a very simple 5-step process for overcoming call reluctance, and I will give it to you and I will let you write it down. So the first step is awareness, okay? And I want to say something before I get into this, right? 60% of salespeople have a very strong need to be approved of and accepted and liked, okay? And that need for approval, that need for acceptance, that need to be liked is okay, because we're supposed to be part of groups. We were created to be, wanted to be part of groups and to be liked and to be approved of, okay? But when your need for approval, your need for acceptance, your need to be liked is so strong that it prevents you from doing the things you need to do to take care of your family and to create a great life for yourself, that's when it's a problem. And here's the thing, and this is the great news, we're already good enough. Every one of us is good enough just the way we are. We're tall enough, we're smart enough, we're good looking enough, right? We are good enough just the way that we are. We don't need anybody's approval or acceptance at all, right? And the fact of the matter is, you know, I could look at Nicole, or I could look at Alicia or Kim or Erica, whoever, and I could say, you know, you're a beautiful woman, you're smart, you're hardworking, you're good moms, you're good sisters, you're good daughters, you've got a great personality. I could say all those things to you, and they're probably all true. But if you don't believe it, then it doesn't matter. I could not say anything to you that would make you feel approved of more than the 10 seconds it would take me to say that. And that's just not for you, ladies, that's for everybody, right? Your acceptance, your approval is your responsibility. But as soon as you accept yourself and all the things that happened, your life will change forever, and it will make it a lot easier for you to move on to do the things you need to do. Does that make sense? Like I was a convicted felon. You know, I went to prison for a year for mail fraud. My partner lied on $15 million worth of mortgages. I spent a year in prison. I didn't see my family for a year. I cheated on my wife 4 times. I've blown $5 million. You know, one of my kids tried to take their own life because I screwed their life up. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I hardly have any friends left. Done a lot of stupid things and bad things in my life. But here's the thing. I wasn't doing it out of malice. I wasn't doing it to hurt people. I wasn't doing it because I was a bad person. I was hurting, and I didn't know how to deal with my emotions. And so when the trigger came up, I went to the things that made the pain go away. And unfortunately, when you do things to make the pain go away, they're almost always bad things. Does that make sense? You guys are with me? Like, we take the pain and we push it down. And so if one of my pain relievers is sex, then I'm going to go cheat on my wife because my home life isn't good. Now, look, am I proud of these things? No, but I accept them and I own them, and nobody can say anything to me that's going to hurt me about it because I did it. And I'm not that person, and it's who I am. So I accept myself as I am. I accept everything that I did, and doing that allowed me to move forward and do the things I do today to help work with people and help them change their lives. So step 1 is awareness. Okay. You can't hit a target that you can't see. You can't fight an enemy that you can't see, right? If you're not aware of what's causing you to not get on the phone, what's causing you to procrastinate, what's causing you to, and thanks for putting that in the notes, Tom. So what's causing you to not create the life that you want? Like, real estate should be like this. It should be like playing with a yo-yo as you're walking uphill. You want to grow, and then there's ups and downs, right? So I'm playing with a yo-yo. The yo-yo is the regular ups and downs of the days and weeks, but over time you're going up, right? For most people, though, real estate is like this. I'm making money, I'm not making money, I'm making money, I'm not making money, I'm making money, I'm not making money, right? And the reason is because it's hard to be consistent when you have call reluctance and procrastination issues. And here's the thing, if you have call reluctance, you probably don't do a very good job keeping a calendar. You probably aren't good at sticking with your goals. You probably don't stick to an eating plan that's going to take care of you. You have trouble sticking and going to the gym. Okay, by the way, my high weight was 480 pounds. Okay, I let my weight get to 480. I was the weight of basically a baby hippopotamus. Okay, so all of these things are all tied in with each other, and it has to do with how we feel about ourselves and what we accept about who we are and what we don't, and that self-worth issue. Okay, so number 1 is awareness. I've got to go find out what it is that's causing this insanity. So tonight, here's what I want you to do after we hang up here. If you really are in a position where you're having trouble getting to the next phase of your business or your life, or you keep getting in relationships with the same bad people, or you keep, your goal board's here, but it's got dust on it or whatever, I just want you to take 2 note cards, and for you perfectionists, just take a piece of paper and rip it in half. You know who you are, most of you, all of us right now, but rip a piece of paper in half. And I just want you to ask a very simple question. What is the source of my call reluctance? ? I want you to put it on both pieces of paper. Or what is the source of my procrastination? Or what is the source of my perfectionism? I just want you to write that on each piece of paper or each card. I want you to keep one with you today and keep looking at it. And I want you to put, pointing at my bedroom, sorry. I want you to put one next to your nightstand, okay? Because here's why. When you go to bed at night, your brain does most of its work. Okay. It's your subconscious, by the way, does 95% of the work all the time. But when you go to bed tonight and you look at that, your brain says it's going to start doing its work. And your brain looks like a librarian when you go to bed. If you guys are old enough to remember this, the librarian had a cart, right? And she or he would put the books on the cart and they'd walk around the library and they put the books wherever they went on the shelves, right? That's what your brain does. Your brain goes, okay, here's all the things that happened today. Here's all the things that's happened over life. And let's go make sense of it. Dink, dink, dink. Oh man, I got bullied for being fat. We haven't dealt with that. Let's leave that on the floor. Then, I felt stupid because my brother and sister did more and better than I did. Let's put that on the floor. And my dad yelled at me and beat me and screamed at me and made me feel horrible. Put that on the floor. And so every night when it does that, he's putting it on the floor. And eventually the cart starts bumping into that. And that's why you get sleepless nights and insomnia, or you go to sleep and you wake up and can't go back to sleep and your mind's racing or whatever it is. And those are just unresolved issues that need to be attended to. Okay, because your brain's job is very simple. I'm going to keep you alive. I'm going to keep you at peace. I'm going to make things okay. And if you keep pushing the stuff down, as soon as whatever it is, alcohol, food, whatever, as soon as the internal drugs wear off, I'm bringing it right back up because we have to deal with it. Does that make sense? So tonight, when you go to bed and start reading that, when you go to bed, by the time you wake up tomorrow, you should have a very clear idea of why you're unable to or unwilling to do what's necessary to get your business and life to the next level. Make sense? Not hard. Now, by the way, please do not call me and swear at me tonight. Okay. People wake up in the middle of the night and things come up and I get, hey, F you, why the F did you do this to me? So, but here's the thing, you need this awareness because you got to go to step 2. Step 2 is awareness, a different type of awareness. So awareness, define, identify, and mindfulness. So that's awareness, define, identify, and mindfulness. So now that I'm aware of the bigger picture, now I've got to be aware of what emotions are coming up that are stopping me from getting on the phone. Because something happens when you're ready to go get on the phone, or when you're ready to go and get in front of somebody to speak, or when you're ready to make a call for something, or you're ready to go do something that you're uncomfortable with. Sorry, again, those those emotions come up, okay? And for our whole lives, we've just been pushing to the side, but we need to let them come up. So the first thing we have to do is go, oh, wait a second. And that's why the first step is so important, because I want you to actually go ahead and feel those emotions so you can start dealing with them, because once you start letting them out, they go away, and then they can go away for good. So this first step of the second part is awareness. Oh, I feel something. I'm feeling anxious. Let's define this. Okay, this is anxiety, and I'm going to identify where it's coming from. You know what? I've never felt good as a child growing up because I'll give you another example. I have a client who's an agent, and he was a huge perfectionist, beautiful woman, but would spend tens of thousands of dollars a year on clothes, cars, purses, hair extensions, eyelashes, nails, teeth whitening, all kinds of stuff, because when she was in 5th grade, the kids made fun of her for wearing dress shoes to gym class one time. And they teased her so badly that she felt that she would need to, if she just looked perfect every day, that nobody could say anything bad about her. But what's the problem with perfectionism? Anybody? What's the problem with trying to be perfect?
No one's perfect.
Thank you very much. Yep, Nicole, that's what you're going to say?
I was going to say it stops you. That's the problem with perfectionism.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, and I was a perfectionist. I mean, I fight it every day sometimes, but yeah, exactly. You can't be perfect. So it's literally a guarantee. Thank you, Eric. Exactly. It is a guarantee for failure. So it is a mind crushing process. So that's why we go, okay, bingo. And what's that? So bingo, oh, that's anxiety. This is me going into perfectionist mode. This is why it's happening. And then I'm going to become mindful. Okay. And mindfulness is nothing more than stopping what you're doing and focusing on what's happening right now. Okay. We think about the present, we get anxious. We think about the future, we get anxious, we get worried, we get scared. What are they going to think of me? I'm going to get rejected. Okay. I think about the past, I get sad, I get depressed. But if I'm focusing on this very, very, very moment, I can't feel any of that or experience any of that stuff. Okay. So I'm going to give you 2 things. Number 1, there's a website on YouTube, or the section on YouTube, it's called The Mindful Movement, MINDFUL movement, The Mindful Movement. And if you go and subscribe to it, they have hundreds and hundreds of mindful meditations where you can take guided meditations, and they can take you through being mindful, or you can just engage in what they call box or square breathing. So here's what happens. I get wigged out. I'm like, ooh, that's crazy. There's a physical response. Okay, I'm feeling anxious right now. Why am I feeling anxious? Your brain will tell you. And then you just stop and close your eyes and you breathe in for a 4 count. You hold for a 4 count. You breathe out for a 4 count, and you hold for a 4 count. And you just keep doing that. So in, hold. So it's in for 4 if you want to do it with me. So in, hold, out, hold, and then the same thing. And what happens is that takes you from fight or flight to rest or digest. Fight or flight is my body getting ready to either take off or fight. Anybody want to know why their saliva dries up when they go do something they're nervous, or they get sweaty pits, sweaty arms? You got to go to the bathroom. Basically, your body's voiding itself of urine and of anything that's going to keep you from slowing down. It opens up your blood vessels. It opens up your airwaves. And then it starts to really close down and making your digestive system as efficient as possible. So you have energy and whatever you need to do to run or to fight. But if you do some box breathing, or if you do some mindful meditation, it's the only way you can do it. You can go from fight or flight to rest or digest, which is what we are right now. Okay. Now here's the thing. It can happen in a matter of like minutes. And here's the benefit of doing this. If you do this regularly, so if you practice mindfulness, if you do mindful meditation, not just like sitting squat-legged like Yogi Kutu, listening to, you know, bells and music. I'm talking about mindful meditation where you listen to somebody guide you through training your brain to just focus on the moment. Eventually, your brain's going to take over. Okay. It's called neuroplasticity. You've probably heard of it before. But the more you train your brain to not let external, extrinsic, hurtful, painful, disempowering things that come in, the more your brain's going to go, oh, I get it. I understand now. And eventually, if you do it enough, your brain will actually do it for you. You can do the research on it. That's exactly what mindfulness does. Because up until this point in our lives, our brains have been like little savings accounts. And every time an emotion came in, we just put it in there and let it do whatever it's going to do. We never took control and stood guard at the door of our mind. Okay. So step 3 is you got to rewire your brain. Okay. And which means is you got to engage in some things that are going to change what you say to yourself, how you say things to yourself. Okay. So you got to engage in something like activities from Hal Elrod's The Miracle Morning. Okay. It's a morning exercise of what you call savers. So it's an hour long. It's 10 minutes of these following exercises. So savers. So scribing, which is journaling. A is for affirmations. V is for visualization. E is for exercise. R is for reading. And then S is for silence or meditation. So scribing, journaling. A for affirmations. V for visualization. E for exercise. R for reading. And then S is for silence. And if you can get into doing this for 10 minutes of these every morning, in about 2 weeks, you will feel like a different person. And I promise you, you will be sleeping better. Things that are bothering you won't bother you as much. And you will start to be able to get on the phone because your brain is not letting these extraneous, extrinsic, exterior BS come in and start wreaking havoc on you. It takes work, but you have to do it. Okay. So one more time, scribing, journaling, A for affirmations, V for visualization, E for exercise, R is for reading, and then the other S is for silence or meditation. Number 4, you got to figure out what you want. What do you really want? What drives you? What motivates you? Okay. Daniel Pink talks about extrinsic and intrinsic motivation, carrot and stick, cars, boats, houses, all extrinsic, right? He says, be intrinsic about it. What's my, how can I say this? What's the word I'm looking for here? I always have to draw a blank here. So autonomy is one thing. So when my life is the way it is, the way I want it to be, what's it going to look like? I've been coaching real estate agents for 22 years now. I've sold millions of dollars of coaching, and to the person, with rare exception, everybody gets into the real estate business so they can have the 3 freedoms: time freedom, money freedom, location freedom. I've rarely met an agent who doesn't want that. And if you're an EXP, you really want that, right? Because you jumped in because of the comp plan and the ability to get revenue share. Okay. And so part of being able to do that is getting on the phone and talking to people. So part of your process of figuring out what you want is, what do I really want? And then what do I have to master to make that happen? One of the things you have to master to be super successful long-term is the ability to manage your emotions and not go off the rails, right? Real estate's not easy. I'm surprised Tom doesn't look 900 right now. He's been doing this forever. He takes good care of himself, obviously, but he's been through it. He's been through, 30 years. You've seen all kinds of crap. You've seen several recessions. You've seen the Great Recession. You've seen all kinds of stuff. So the whole point is you've got to be able to weather that storm to keep moving forward and be able to pick up the phone and call and do all that stuff. And you have to master things. Okay. And one of those things is managing your emotions so you can do the things necessary to grow your business. And then the last thing out is figuring out your why. Okay. So figure out your why. So now here's the deal. Simon Sinek has a great book called Find Your Why. The first one was Start With Why. That was for businesses. The next one's Find Your Why. And so real quick distinction here. Okay. Your kids are not a why, they're a who. Your wife is not a why, she's a who. Your husband, okay? Houses are what's, cars are what's, vacations are where, okay? The why has to do with two things. Number one, what sort of pain? So first part is, what sort of pain do you want to avoid? Or do you want other people to avoid? So one of my huge whys is to make sure that nobody has to hit rock bottom like I did. Okay. In order for me to do that, I've got to make sure that I take any opportunity I can to hop on a phone or a call like this. So I make time in my schedule last minute. I work on myself continually. So the pain for me is I don't want anybody to experience getting to the point where they want to put a gun in their mouth like I did. I wanted to kill myself. I really did. I was probably an hour away from it. And fortunately, a good conversation with God changed that. But I got to the point where life was so horrible and I was in so much pain that I wanted to die. Okay. And I didn't. And I don't want anybody to ever get to that. And we all have enough leverage right now. There's enough leverage in your life. You have enough reasons to go and do whatever you have to do to overcome all of this BS you've been telling yourself to create a great life for yourself. So the first part is, what pain do you need to avoid? That pain in most cases is going to be what happened when you were a kid. Okay, now some of you had some bad stuff. I know people that were kidnapped, people that were raped, people that had family members that were killed. That happened afterwards, but that just exacerbated what was happening when they were younger. And the second part of it is you have to be able to impact the outcome of it, right? So my kids, I don't want my kids to not have money like I did. I lived paycheck to paycheck while I was making $200,000, $250,000, $300,000 a year, because I did not value money. And my parents never taught me about it. And I was using my money to buy love, to buy approval. And so my kids, the three oldest ones, all have credit cards. They all have debit cards. And I'm teaching them how to use money. And I'm intentional about spending time with them about how to understand and how to use money. Okay. So the pain is not having money as a kid and feeling different, and then not being able to do some things for them for a good portion of my life because I was stupid with money. And then the activity of teaching them how to use money and getting them credit cards and spending time explaining finances to them so that they understand money and that they know what's going on. The other thing is my son's getting his real estate license, and part of my plan is to help him build a real estate portfolio that's going to pay each of those kids $100,000 a year for the rest of their lives, so that when I die, I know that they're always going to have money coming in. Okay. So my kids are not the why, they're the who. The why is the pain of being poor and the pain of not understanding money and not having money available to do things. I mean, when I moved to Texas, I moved here because I lost everything for the third time in 2007 in the Great Recession. I took a job here that was less money than I needed, and I had to go next door to borrow money from the people I just moved next to I barely knew, so I could have money to go buy some drugs, some medicine for my kids. Okay, that's demoralizing, and I put myself there. So anyway, the pain, what pain are you trying to avoid for yourself or somebody else? And then what I'm going to contribute X, I'm going to do something so that I can change the outcome of Y. So real quick review here. First thing is awareness. I got to find out why exactly, what it was that happened that started this insanity here, that has me telling lies to myself and believing that I'm not good enough and that I don't deserve things and that people aren't going to like me and that people aren't going to want me and I'm going to get rejected. You know what I'm saying? And then the next thing is I've got to be individually aware of these emotions as they come up. I've got to define what it is and stop for a second, identify it. And then I have to start working on my mindfulness every day. I'm going to start training my brain to not let BS in. And I do that through mindful meditation, through the mindful movement, or through square breathing. The third step is I got to start rewiring my brain. I got to start saying different things to myself. You know, we say things to ourselves that we would never say to other people. That we would, I mean, would you ever tell a kid that they were stupid or that were dumb, that they were lazy, that they weren't good enough, that they didn't deserve something? No, but we say that crap to ourselves all day long. I'll never do that. Oh, I'm not good at that. I'm not good at this. I won't do this. You know, got to stop saying those things. Okay. And then number 4, really got to figure out what you want. Like, what is the autonomy? Like, what does your life look like when it really is the way it's supposed to be? And then what's everything that has to happen? What do you have to master to make all of that happen? And one of those things is managing your emotions so that you can get on the phone and call people, so that you can push through when there's tough times and you stop yourself from saying crappy, dumb, horrible things to yourself that will derail you. And then lastly, you got to really figure out what your why is. And it's not a kid, it's not a house, it's not a car, it's not a boat. It's, hey, this sucked and I hated it, and I either don't want it for myself or somebody else. And here's what I'm willing to do so that I can make the outcome the way I want it to be. Does that make sense?
Awesome.
What's that?
This is
That's
great.
it. Thank you.
Yeah. Wally, if someone wants to reach out, how do they get a hold of you?
So you can go to my website. It's called triggersalessystems.com, TRIGGER salessystems.com. system. Sorry, just one, triggersalessystem.com. You can go there and you can grab a half hour on my calendar for free. Okay. And we'll talk. So if you want to find out what's bothering you, what's keeping you from getting what you want, hop on, and it takes about 15 minutes and I'll tell you exactly what it is. And I can give you some more strategies. Okay.
Oh, awesome. Thank you,
Thanks for
Wally,
your time.
for your transparency, for your honesty,
Yep,
and
Thank you.
sharing some great, so we all have some homework. It's super simple. Write it down, 2 note cards. What is the source of my call reluctance?
Mhm.
Make it happen. And in 10 minutes, we've got dialing for dollars. So now we got our inspiration, time to put in our perspiration, push past our call reluctance and make some calls, have some fun. Thanks, everyone. See you
Have a
soon.
good day,
Thanks,
everybody. Thank you
Wally.
so much. Thanks,
Wally,
Tom.
that was
Bye, guys.
awesome.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.